Ruby on Rails isn't just about beautiful code. It's just as much about productivity. It's just as much about the impact that an individual programmer is able to have. That they can build a system where they can keep the whole thing in their head and be able to move it forward such that you can go from one developer sitting and working on something, and that something is Shopify, and it turns into what it is today. When we talk about programming languages and we compare them, we often compare them at a very late stage. Like, what is the better programming language for, let's say, Twitter in 2009, when it's already a huge success? Twitter was started on Ruby on Rails. They then hit some scaling problems. It was a big debacle at the time. They end up then, I think, writing it in some other language, which, by the way, I think is the best advertisement ever for Ruby on Rails, because nothing fucking happened for 10 years after they switched over, right? Essentially zero innovation. Some of that was because they were doing a long conversion, and all of the early success in part came because they had the agility to quickly change and adopt and so forth. That's what startups need. That's what Shopify needed. That's what Twitter needed. That's what everyone needs. And that's the number one priority for Ruby on Rails, to make sure that we don't lose that. Because what happens so often when development tools and programming language are driven by huge companies is that they mirror their org chart. React and everything else needed to use that is in some ways a reflection of how Meta builds Facebook. Because of course it is. Because of course it's an extraction of that. I'm not saying React isn't a great tool and that can't be used by smaller teams. Of course it can. But it's born in a very different context than something like Ruby on Rails.